There you go. Chapter 8. The next picture is one I took in May 1944. Rosa and Erika stand in front of their sewing factory. I had to take it quickly and when no one was around, as by then owning a camera in the ghetto was illegal. Rosa and Erika made uniforms for German soldiers. I still worked at the metalworks factory where I'd been placed in an apprenticeship program. First, I learned how to strip any machine that came into the workshop, and then I learned how to put it back together. Others there made pails or watering cans. One evening in May, when we were at one of our youth meetings, Rosa began to tell us of the corruption in the soup kitchens at her factory. "We get a bowl of soup at lunch and an extra one later," she remarked. "There is so little in it that we are just filling up with water. Or it is so disgusting you can't eat it. What is the soup like at your plant, Daniel?" "Pretty terrible," I admitted, "but there are potatoes and carrots in it, and occasionally a small meat ration." "You see, I knew it," she exclaimed. "I'm sure the staff is pilfering the good vegetables, and all we get is some turnip tops and potato peels." She paused. I knew that pause well. She was not just daydreaming, she was planning. "Well, I don't think this can go on. I, for one, will refuse to eat it." "You'll refuse a meal?" one of the others questioned, astonished. "You can't afford to. You'll get too weak, working all day on an empty stomach." "I can't afford not to," she replied. "Already many of the workers aren't able to carry on. Hot water is of no use to us. No, this is the only way." News had a way of traveling in the ghetto, not by telephone, but by word of mouth. The next morning, we heard that the workers at Rosa's sewing factory had refused their soup, and as a result, the ringleaders, including Rosa, had been fired. This was really serious. Everyone knew that if you didn't have a job, you would be the first one selected for a transport. Quickly, I organized a meeting of the young workers on our floor. I suggested that as a gesture of support, we send the workers at the sewing factory soup from our kitchens. Solidarity was our only hope. After all, what if the people in our kitchens tried to cheat us? Wouldn't we want the support of workers in other factories? They all agreed, and a few boys and I took the soup over. This really upset the director of the factory, but it gave the workers there a terrific boost. They ate our soup, then declared that they would go on a hunger strike until Rosa and the others were rehired. Later, I learned that Erika had organized this plan of action. Erika! Management was furious, and we wouldn't give in at first. But after 2 days, they rehired Rosa and her friends and established a committee to oversee the kitchen workers and to make sure that all the food that was coming into the factory stayed there. Rosa was ecstatic. "You see," she said to Erika and me as we sat in the courtyard together, "we just have to stick together. Daniel, you would have been so proud of Erika. I understand she even gave a speech." "Erika, is it true?" I asked. "Did you?" "A little speech," Erika smiled. "Sometimes a few words is all it takes." Well, if anyone understood that, Erika did. I gave her a big hug. "I'm so proud of you," I said. She actually blushed. Rosa sighed. "All this struggle," she said, "and for what? I still believe that they'll try to kill us all before the war is over. They're going to lose, we know that now from listening to your radio, but I'm just as sure that they'll kill as many of us as they can before the end. At least that way Hitler will feel he's accomplished something. He may lose the war, but Europe will be free of Jews. I've heard rumors that they're going to destroy the entire ghetto, deport everyone. Daniel, you'll have to promise me that anything like that happens, you'll go into hiding. After all, where will they send us? Somewhere better? I don't think so. And what could be worse than this? Only death." I stared at the ground for a moment before I replied. "I can't promise," I said quietly. "If my family needs me, I must go with them." "What good will you be to them dead?" Rosa objected. But I couldn't give her the promise she asked for. Not with Erika sitting there, thin and pale, with the beginnings of a cough. Perhaps if I went with them, I could help. Good news and bad came together in the summer of 1944. First, Rosa and her family had to move because the Germans ordered a whole section of the ghetto closed down. It had some of the best apartment buildings in it, and everyone had to find a new place to stay. The bright spot was that we convinced Friedrich to move in with us. The rabbi moved in with another family, and Rosa and her family moved into the first floor room in our building. It made seeing each other much easier for us. And then in June, we heard the news of D-Day, the Allied invasion of France, on our radio. We spread the word through the ghetto, and soon everyone was celebrating, right in front of the Germans, too. No one cared, but the Germans were furious. They realized that the only way we could have found out was from radios, and they started to search the ghetto for them. A number of people were arrested. They never even searched our apartment. We were lucky. but we were very careful from then on to listen only when we were sure no one was around who could inform on us. That was a wonderful day. Still, Rosa was convinced that our doom was sealed. Erika was sure we would be saved. I wavered between hope and despair. In July, we heard that a coup against Hitler had failed. We were devastated, but it did give us hope to realize that some Germans were turning against their great leader. The Russians were advancing. But was it fast enough? Because just as Rosa had predicted, the Germans ordered more mass transports out of the ghetto. Postmen ran from house to house delivering the wedding invitations. That's what we called the orders. Everyone lived in fear. Our youth group went to work, hiding those notified. Some people ran for days from house to apartment to cellar, but finally gave up, too tired and hungry to run and hide anymore. The Germans reduced the size of the ghetto to only 4 blocks, so it was hard to find anywhere to hide. And then in August, our notice came. Mother was very sick by then. She had tuberculosis. She had to leave her job a few weeks earlier because she could pass the disease on to others. Erika had also developed a terrible cough. The doctor said it was bronchitis. She needed medicine, but there was none. She ran a fever, had chills, coughed violently. When the final transports were announced in August, most Jews refused to go. They stayed home instead of reporting to the train station. Then Hans Biebau, the German in charge of the ghetto, made a speech to the Jews. He told us that we were being sent into Germany to work for the war effort. He said that when the Russians came, they would deal with us harshly because we had worked for the Germans. And some people fell for it. They believed him. The Russians were so close, but couldn't they move faster? I was in a fever pitch of dread and expectation. Father called a meeting. I've been thinking about our alternatives, he said. Mother and Erika are very weak because of their illnesses. The only place I've found where we could all hide is a cellar under the bakery. It's very damp and cold, and I'm afraid that a few days down there would mean death for them. Therefore, we will go on the transport and hope that we are being sent to another work camp. But not you, Daniel, or you, Friedrich. I want to go with you, I objected. No, the Russians will be here soon. They will not punish us, as Biebau says. We all know that. They will liberate us, and you will be here when they do. Wait until after we leave, when it is dark and no one can see where you're going. Then sneak over to the bakery. Grab some bread on your way down to the cellar. That night, Erika, Rosa, and I had our last meeting in the courtyard. Friedrich couldn't be there as he was working a night shift. I felt terrible about my family leaving without me. I was sure I would never see them again. If I had the power of God, I said bitterly, I would wipe the entire human race off the face of the earth. If I had the power of God, I said bitterly, I'd wipe the entire human race off the face of the earth. It's a complete failure. Look around us, a race of monsters. And then Erika yelled at me, Don't you ever say that, Daniel, she said. I'm ashamed of you. I was so stunned I couldn't reply. But Rosa came to my defense. Erika, what's wrong with you? Daniel's right. How can you look around you, see most of the people you loved murdered and tortured, and think anything else? How could these things happen if the world were a decent place? Rosa, Erika replied, I'm ashamed of you too. Don't you see? This is the way the Nazis think. They believe that we Jews weren't good enough to live, and so they decided to wipe us off the face of the earth. Who were they to decide who should live and who should die? And who are you? For once, Rosa didn't have an answer, and neither did I. We are alive. We're human, with good and bad in us. That's all we know for sure. We can't create a new species or a new world. That's been done. Now we have to live within those boundaries. What are our choices? We can despair and curse and change nothing. We can choose evil like our enemies have done and create a world based on hate, or we can try to make things better. Why have we fought so hard to survive all these years? So we can go to our deaths in despair? We must live, and when this is all over, we must work to make the world a better place. And then she paused. And if we die, we'll die knowing that it is not our fault, that we did our best, and we can go to our deaths in dignity. You're both strong. I want you both to live and to start over in Palestine, and to have children and to remember those of us who were destroyed by the worst in humanity, by its hate. She paused again. You must choose love. Always choose love. Rosa and I were both crying by the time Erika finished speaking. We hugged her and held on tight to her, and I knew she was right. My little sister. Tears flow down my face as I think of it now. Timid, silent Erika turned out to be the bravest, most eloquent of us all.